right. Give me 1 second. All right. I believe we are live. Well, unbeknownst to me, I'm wearing the same shirt as I did yesterday. So let me go and swap shirts real quick, so at least looks like I changed shirts. Oh, yes. All right, much better. Sweet. Select a stream here. Let's get caught into the stream. All right, we are live. Let me grab my drink. Sorry, a little behind schedule here. All right. Sorry about that. Got my lemonade here. All right. We are good to get started here. Appreciate you guys joining me today. Today is December the 8th, 2024. And we are going to be learning about some Python and data structures and algorithms today. All right. Cool. Let me go ahead and move that off to the side. And let's pull up our DSA here. Cool. All right, let's let the Discord know that we are live. All right. So let's warm up today with a couple of problems. I think we'll try to get to maybe 3:15 or and then we can move on and start doing some features on our small business manager project. All right. All right. I'm a little bit behind schedule and disoriented. I just woke up from a little bit of a nap, so a little bit kind of groggy, but we'll be all right. We'll warm up here, the brain. All right, we're on 311. It's not the right name. Okay, so 311 says, show that D of n is O of f of n, and E of n is O of g of n, then when we add D of n and E of n together, it's O of f of n plus g of n. Okay, so what we can do is take this here, O of f of n, O of g of n, O of f of n plus g of n. Awesome. So in order to, we know that O of n time has for some function f of n is less than or equal to some constant c times some function g of n. So that's what the that represents, right? So we know that if d of n is an O of f of n times, so we know that the function O of f of n is actually going to be placed here in this formula, and the function d of n is going to be placed out here, because this is technically, right, the big O notation, right? This is the big O equation, and this is the big O notation for when d of n is less than or equal to the big O notation, right? This is our upper bound. So we'll phrase it like this. Let me go ahead and comment. Hey, Jeremy Fuller, I appreciate you coming in and leaving a message and joining us today. It's good to hear from you again. How is your Sunday going so far? Hope it's well. Okay, so then what we'll go ahead and do is we'll do the same thing for E of n, right? It's kind of the same format. So we have some function E of n that's going to be less than or equal to some constant c times g of n, right? Like so. So now if we add these two together, d of n plus g of n, or e of n, I'm sorry, we will get, let's make this c2, right? We'll get c c1, 2. So it's going to be c1 plus c2 plus and that's going to be multiplied by the f of n plus g of n, right? So by adding these two functions together, we add the like terms together, and we add these like functions together of n, right? They both take in input values of n, so they are like functions in a sense, so we can add them together. They both represent the same time, an O of g of n time, right? An O of f of n time. So we can essentially add them together, and thus I will go ahead and just duplicate this down. And so thus d of n plus e of n just kind of becomes equals big O f of n plus g of n, right? We drop the constants. Right. And I believe that's our answer. That's how we show that. So let's plug that into the Jibbity and see what it says. To prove that d of n plus e of n is O of f of g of n, O of f of n plus g of n, we proceed formally. Definitions. D of n is O of f of n. This means that for all constants greater than 0 and n values 1 greater than or equal to 0, such that d of n is equal to, yeah, we have that, right? That's exactly to what we wrote earlier. This means that for any constant, for the same thing for e of n. So if we add these two together, we get this just like we had before. Oh, it was less than or equal to, apologies. We need to keep that, it's key. And then, since c plus 1, c1 plus c2 is a constant, d of n plus e of n is bounded by the constants. Cool. Cool, exactly. We got it right, guys. Look at that. We're getting this. That's so cool. That's very exciting. It's very rewarding that it seems like we're able to get these answers correct. We're understanding how these, functions work. Okay. So yeah, so we ended up getting the same d of n plus e of n is greater than or less than or equal to c1 plus c2 times uh, f of n plus g of n, right? So perfect. And then we just reduce that down to the time complexity. All right. Sarah Avita, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you joining me and coming to learn how to program with me. Right now, we're just studying some data structures and algorithms in Python. We're reading this book by three authors. I believe this book is taught at some collegiate level courses for DSA and Python. Pardon me. And sorry, I do a lot of talking, so often I get my throat gets caught up, but apologies. Anyways, yeah, we're doing DSA and Python here. We are at the end of chapter 3, where we're introduced actually to new concepts. So chapter 1 and 2 we read aloud on stream already, so if you want you can check those out. But those just have basic overview and introduction back into Python and how to get yourself ready to understand and utilize algorithms such as classes and things like that. Um, but yeah, we just read through those and did those practice problems. And then chapter 3, we were introduced to a lot of new material here, such as, let me go ahead and just jot back to our notes here. Chapter 3, by the way, if you would like access to all of my notes and the answers to these practice problems from this textbook, I have pushed this directory to a GitHub repo, and that is just linked in the description below to my GitHub, so go ahead and check that out if you want access to this on your device and all these answers in my notes. And yeah, so let me know if that is something that you utilize, because that would be awesome. But anywho, we took some notes here on chapter 3, and we were introduced to the 7 functions: constant functions, log functions, linear functions, n log n functions, quadratic and cubic functions, and then lastly exponential functions for determining, time complexities, big O notation, big omega notation, and big theta notation. Um, so we kind of, yesterday, we even further solidified our knowledge with an example here for worst case, best case scenario on an algorithm by algorithm basis. So feel super comfortable with big O and big omega. Big theta, I'm not super straightforward on yet. We need to kind of do some further investigating in on big theta. I was kind of interpreting, I'm kind of starting to understand in a way. Um, I think, right. So this is just the 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 actual running time that is. So if we have a big O notation and we have a big omega notation, then we can determine a big theta notation. So I think it's dependent upon these other operations, but we can further investigate that today and add an example here. But then we were just have some justification techniques to wrap up the chapter. Contradiction. This was like kind of what we gets into in proofing and discrete mathematics a little bit, just an introduction into that. But yeah, so, and then we just have some arbitrary notes here that we are taking for the chapters. But yeah, so like I said, all of this is available through that GitHub repo that you can find at link below. Um, and yeah, so if you're also interested in continuing to follow along, please follow the channel. We are almost at 300 subscribers. We're like 2 away, I think. So thanks so much, you guys, for showing the love. It's been so overwhelming, honestly, that people are interested in following along with me, and that this is working out. So I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our 3.2 underscore key dot pi. Okay, so R312 states that show that d of n, function d of n, is O of f of n time, and e of n is O of g of n time. So the same thing as before, but this states that then d of n minus e of n is not necessarily O of f of n minus g of n. Interesting. Okay, so we might see something kind of unique here happen when we actually subtract or take the difference of these two functions rather than what we've been doing before. So let's try and see what's going to happen. Hold on one sec. Let's clean up the problem here. Get these formatted appropriately. And then I'll get caught up on the chat here. Jeremy says, finished my last final today. Feels so good to have a break. Well, awesome. Well, you know, I applaud you for joining in on a study session today when you just finished your finals. You know, it just goes to show that this is a relaxing setting, hopefully, for you and for everybody, where we take the pressure off of learning here. But thanks for coming in and appreciate you. Ray313 says, did you learn time and space complexity? We learned about, like I said in the chapter 3 notes, we learned a little bit into the introduction to big O notation, the functions associated with determining big O notation and big omega notation, and therefore big theta notation. But we haven't learned too much about space complexity yet, so if that's a different topic, I'm sure we're going to get there in these upcoming chapters, so just stay tuned. Okay. So we have our first line, right? I'm just going to copy these from before, these two up here. So a function d of n which is less than or equal to some constant times function f of n, right? And then we have some function e of n which is less than or equal to some constant c underscore 2 times, or c2 times some constant g of n, or sorry, some function g of n. So now we're going to subtract these functions. So we have d of n minus e of n is less than or equal to c underscore 1 minus c underscore 2 times f of n minus g of n. So why in this case, right? Because we're subtracting, we have the potential, right? Because we are going down, so this is interesting, right? So we have if we plug in some numbers here, just to kind of play the game, essentially. So let's do like 5 minus, let's say like 10, right? Times, right? So this would give you some negative number if your constant for g of n is greater. So if the constant associated for e of n is greater than c at d of n, you could potentially have this side of the equation become greater than this side, causing it to be negative.
Sorry.
This side of the equation.
I'm locked lately in here.
Oh, she's stuck? You can leave it cracked if you want. Okay. All right, so yeah, right, if the function e of n has a larger constant associated with it, so I think that's the answer. So if e of n, if constant c2 is greater than c1, right? So in this case, it's saying that why in this circumstance could this not necessarily be true, right? This is the first time we're being asked that this could not necessarily be an O of f of n minus g of n time. Well, if we plan of think about it, if this number is smaller than this number, we will have a negative value here being multiplied by some other value here. So if this value is positive, which it will be for some data value n. So I just don't know how to explain this in words. Does anybody have an idea of how to explain this in words? Hey, Moon, I appreciate you coming in and leaving a message again. It's good to hear from you. How's your Sunday treating you? Hope it's going well. Short and sweet tube. Again, you keep going. You gonna be strong. Yes. Thanks so much for the encouragement. I appreciate the kind words. And thanks so much for leaving a message and joining me today. I applaud you just as much for putting in the time to stop in and learn just as much as me. So you are applauded as well. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and talk to that mighty orb about this one. I want to kind of pick its brain, really. I have another question, and I don't want you to spoil the answer, but coach me through. I think I know the answer, but I am not sure how to phrase it. Here is the question. All right. So we'll ask the almighty orb in a genuine fashion. So he says, got it. Let's work through this step by step to help solve the understanding and phrase your answer clearly. Understand the definitions. What does it mean? Okay, so if the values are skewed to where they could possibly cause a negative on either side of the equation, what does negative values tell you in regards to time complexity? For example, if C1 is less than C2, resulting in a negative when by the difference of f of n minus g of n. All right, that kind of sounds confusing, but I think we have it on the right track. So let's prompt it with that. Okay, says, so like we said earlier, is in certain circumstances where when we take the difference of these two functions in this form, right, d of n minus e of n, these two time complexities, if these numbers C1, C2, maybe even these values here are so skewed, right, they're so different in terms of their time complexities, it could draw one of these sides to become negative, right? So for example, if the constant value here, C1 is 5, and the constant value here is 10, there's 10 constant operations happening in the function for g of n, or I'm sorry, for e of n, then we would essentially be getting a negative value here multiplied by some positive value here in some circumstances, um, essentially causing this side to fall less than maybe this side. Now, I don't have any proof of that. It could happen. I would need some actual data, but or some functions to prove it, but I'm sure we'll find out here. Let's see what the almighty orb has to say. Peyton Gardner, thanks so much for coming in and leaving a message today and learning with me. I appreciate you. He says, good evening. How is it going, everybody? It's going really good. We are moving through these practice problems, and then we're going to jump into actually working on our project to the Small Business Manager today, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah. Jeremy Fuller says 300 subs. Congrats. Oh, let's go check it out. Thanks so much. Let's go check that out. Woo! Oh wow, guys! Thank you so much for 300 subscribers. That is insane. It took us 1 week to go up from 200 to 300, so an insane exponential improvement, in my opinion, from the previous. I've been grinding this channel for a few months now, and just out of nowhere, we've been popping off, and so I really appreciate all the interaction and the support. For those that are new, also, we do have a Discord where we are compiling all of study resources together, um, the ones that I'm specifically using here on the channel to learn. And so, pardon me, if you want just one area where you have like PDFs and links, feel free to join the Discord. It's completely free. And I also provide just announcements for when I go live as well on there. Okay, so I basically explained that kind of thinking here, and then the almighty orb says, great thinking. You're diving into an important point. Time complexity is about growth rates, and the actual numerical sign, positive or negative, is irrelevant in this context. Here's why. Key insight. Big O is about asymptotic growth. Big O notation focuses on how the magnitude of a function grows as n approaches infinity. It ignores constants like c1 or c2 and doesn't care about the sign. For example, negative 3n squared and 3n are both O of n squared time because their growth rates are proportional to n squared. What negative values imply? If c1 is less than c2, leading to a negative coefficient for f of n minus g of n, it doesn't change the fact that the magnitude of d of n minus e of n could exceed the absolute value of f of n minus g n. Specifically, negative values might indicate a reversal in the relative growth rates, but time complexities doesn't flip with the sign. Interesting. The potential mismatch you identified, like the skewed constant c1 and c2 underscores the broader issue. The subtraction f of n minus g of n could grow slower than d of n minus e of n, or even approach zero in such cases. Even approach zero. In such cases, the growth of d of n minus e of n might exceed what f of n minus g of n predicts. This breaks the assumption that d of n minus e of n is O of f of n minus g of n. Could we break down that last part further and more simple? All right. Sure, let's simplify the key idea step by step. Big O is about growth, not the sign, okay? Negative numbers don't matter in big O, okay, we understand that. The problem with the subtraction. If f of n and g of n are close in size, then f of n minus g of n could become very small or even zero, right? Exactly. So if if these are close numbers, then we are multiplying by even zero, which could cause this function to become not true, maybe. That's or even zero. But d of n minus e of n might still grow much faster than f of n minus g of n, even where that's where the issue is, why it doesn't work. D of n minus e of n can grow faster than f of n minus g of n, so we can't guarantee that it's in O of n time, right? Okay, so if f of n and g of n are relatively, how do you spell relatively? R-E-L, relatively Relatively spelling. Oh no, stop. Don't go on. Never mind. I cannot spell this word. Sorry, guys. Relatively. Yeah, relatively. I mumble like through words a lot, so oftentimes my accent in terms of just my big tongue and stuff, because I mumble it, kind of messes with my spelling over time. I kind of skip through letters. Um, if f of n and g of n are relatively close in size, the value, the result of f of n, right, minus g of n could be, would be small, a small value, or in some cases close to zero, even zero. Small value, in some cases close to zero or even zero, right? That being said, d of n minus e of n could potentially grow at have a faster growth rate than f of n minus g of n, right? Making our big O of n, right? Making our equation not true. So if f of n and g of n, right, if these two values are relatively close in size, right, for whatever value of n is provided, um, then the actual value of this subtraction that's being taken place would be relatively small. Or in some cases, if these are the exact same number, it would be zero, and we would be multiplying by zero, causing d of n minus e of n to most likely have a faster time complexity or growth rate. I mean, um, than and have a higher upper bound than that of these function, this side of the equation, right? And so this would make this not true because this side would be less than this side, and whereas we need this side to be less than to have d of n minus e of n be an O of f of n minus g of n time. If that makes any sense. Hopefully I was able to break that down into simple terms, but my original thought was starting with the constants, right? But as we've seen with polynomials and functions is they can be negative. They can invert and have negative constants and start in the let's kind of actually, I'm curious. Let's pull up Desmos and let's take a function such as it's been a while, so I just want to see what the the coefficient does for a function of like this. So if we have f of n is equal to 3n squared, which takes this parabola, right? Now if we put a negative here, does this just invert the parabola? Yes. Okay, so that all it does is invert the parabola, causing, we care about values as it goes to infinity. So this would still have a time complexity of O of n squared, despite being a negative function, or in some circumstances, because you can't have negative input values to make this. But either way, you're squaring, so that would become positive times a negative to be a negative function anyways. So that's why you have a upside down parabola anyway. All right, let's get caught up on the chat here. Appreciate you guys joining me today. It's Sunday. It's a grind to sit down and have to teach yourself Python and go through this. So give yourself a pat on the back, a round of applause. We're taking the stress away from learning on this channel. We're just doing it for fun. I have a 9-to-5 job. For those that are new, I previously graduated back in 2021 with a Bachelor's of Science in Human Biology and a minor in Chemistry. I really focused on the chemistry aspect of the physiological side of human biology. And through that, I became a formulation chemist shortly after I graduated college for a biotech company, and I've been working there for 3 years. Currently 25 years old, just teaching myself how to program from scratch. I've never had any instance or previous learning experience with programming besides when I started this channel and started learning, besides, just basic Microsoft Excel if statements inside of whatever, some functions, Microsoft Excel functions. But so I started back at the end of May, beginning of June 2024 with CS50P. That was my first ever get a hands-on experience with programming. I did it very part-time after my 9-to-5 job and on weekends and, on vacations during the summer. And then submitted my final project in August, at the end of August of 2024, this past August, and it was a chemical inventory tracker system. It wasn't too elaborate, it didn't have file and saving, but it did use object orientation to manage classes for these individual instances I was creating for objects of inventory. And so that's kind of just sparked the interest to be like, wow, as I can actually do stuff with this, I can make things out of nothing. I don't have to learn about being an engineer and weld metal and stuff, and I can literally just sit in my bed or in my desk and actually make something. So I was like, this is really awesome. And from there, I just made this channel to hold myself accountable and stream, upload content from a beginner's point of view rather than from someone that's experienced. I felt that it might be beneficial for others, especially what I was seeking. I felt that a lot of people that were advanced, they use a lot of jargon and have made things overcomplicated, such as loops, just basic what functions were, what classes were. Some people just had a hard time explaining that. And not that I'm trying to explain this, but if I, throughout my work, you happen to pick up on things a little bit easier because I'm a beginner doing it, that's the whole goal, right? You and me are peers in this, we're doing this together. Because we're all learning this as one from scratch. So I appreciate you guys joining me, and whatever your circumstances, we're here together. So appreciate you coming here. All right, we have Avinash says, inspiring so many people right now. Oh, such kind words. Thank you so much. It's honestly, you guys say so many kind things. I don't really know what to say sometimes, but I'm very grateful for all the support that I get when I come here. It definitely makes these streams a lot more fun to sit down and do, and more motivating to come and to conquer. So thank you. Feed, hey, I appreciate you coming in and joining, leaving a message. Thank you for joining me, and happy Sunday to you. Dat Steele says, what college are you in? Like I just said, I've already graduated from a state school. You said, what course are you using to teach yourself Python? I did CS50P, like I said, that was my first ever introduction to programming, and then I've just been using various resources. So let me actually go through those real quick. I do this kind of every stream, but I want to make sure the new people know what this channel is about. So hold on one second, bear with me. So on the channel, I just read a lot of these textbooks. I find that textbooks are a great resource for learning, and I know videos are also great, but the textbook just provide a lot more in-depth analysis, especially if they provide examples, because then you can take them at your own pace. But on the channel, we read all of part one of Python Crash Course already, which is just the learning portion of the book. The part two is all about projects. But we did all the learning again to re-solidify those CS50P concepts. They went over all of those in more depth and with examples actually. So I would highly suggest pairing this book with CS50P to set yourself up for the best amount of success if you're looking to get started with something. This book is really great for just making things feel more simple than they may seem. And then we haven't started this book, but we're going to get into it when we dive into after the DSA book. Here is the Fluent Python. This takes Python to the next level, getting into that more advanced intermediate to advanced realm of Python. And then we will dive into some machine learning after that to really give those more advanced concepts some solidification, and maybe even tackle some more math associated with it. So those are the books we're working on currently with the data structures and algorithms. And if you want, obviously, I have PDFs and copies of this, as well as my access to my personal notes, actually, like my files from Google Docs, all within the Discord link below. It's just a free place where you can join to talk to other programmers if you want, and get access to all these my personal resources and what I'm doing on my current pathway. So anywho, yeah, so this solves this problem, right? We successfully solved 312 here. All right. Gotta catch your breath, talking a lot. Dat Steele says, I'm graduating from high school soon and you're inspiring to do CS. Awesome, I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't have a computer science degree at all. I have a degree in a STEM field of physical science, and so I'm thinking that maybe I could bring a unique perspective to the field if I ever decide to make that transition, or I could bring new additional skills to my current field. So I think it's always just beneficial to improve upon yourself by adding more skills. In any sort of format, whether that be going to the gym or learning instruments, teaching yourself obviously education, all those things, right? Okay, let's move on to 313 now. That takes care of that problem. R313 key dot py. Like I said, these notes are all, you can get all these notes on my GitHub. They are available. They have added some images for the functions for the first problem, if they need them. I have my personal actual notes on the chapter itself. So these can be a great, tool to look on and read over to get maybe a beginner's perspective on the material. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and take a stab at this guy. So show that the d of n is in O of f of n time, similar to what we did before, and f of n is in O of g of n. Then d of n is O of g of n. Okay, so hold on. So show that the function d of n is O of f of n time, and the function f of n is O of g of n time. Then the function d of n is O of g of n time. Okay, so if one function is in O of f of n time, the function actually f of n time. Okay, let's try to figure this one out. This is going to be interesting. So let's take our previous statement as before. D of n is O of f of n time, right? So this is the statement that says that d of n is O of f of n time, right? D of n is less than or equal to some constant times a function of n. We have some function f of n is O of n g of n time. So function f of n is less than or equal to oops, some constant 2 times g of n, all right? So then we're trying to prove that d of n is O of g of n. So how would we set this up? We're trying to prove that d of n. How would we prove that d of n, or show that the function d of n is less than or equal to g of n, right? So less than or equal to. So in some circumstances, right, d of n can be equal to some constant c times f of n. And some constant can be 1 in this case. So that means that d of n would equal f of n. Okay, in some circumstances. If d of n equaled f of n, d of n would be placed here. So we'll say in some circumstances, d of n could equal f of n, right? We'll take this actually and put it at the end of this comment here. So in some circumstances, d of n could equal f of n. If d of n equals f of n, we can plug d of n, right, directly into this function as f of n. Or f of n, right, like this. Which would result in d of n time complexity of g of n. O of g of n. Right? Let's get caught up on the chat here. Balling Up Co says, what textbook are you using for problems? Yeah, this is the Data Structures and Algorithms book in Python. You can either look this up online. It has 3 authors, and you can find an online PDF version there, or I provide a copy just in my Discord below, link below, where I just have gathered all my resources together in one area, an environment, and shared them with my viewers here on the channel, as well as my personal notes and my thoughts, or whatever else I decide to throw in there. So let's go ahead and take this and throw it in the almighty orb. Here is a problem. We'll say, my thought is that in some circumstances, d of n can equal f of n. If that's the case, c times g of n would equal f of n or d of n, meaning d of n would have a time complexity of d of n equal to O of g of n time, right? Let's see what it says. Okay, so it says your intuition is on the right track, but let's formalize it more rigorously using the definition of big O notation. D of n is O of f of n. These can't exist, right? So we have d of n is less than or equal to some constant f times f of n, right? Perfect, just like we have up there. Then we have f of n is O of g of n, right? Which is f of n is less than some constant 2 times g of n. Perfect. We aim to prove that d of n is O of g of n. Proof. First, from the first assumption, from the second assumption, by substituting f of n from the second inequality into the first, so they took our d of n function, and for, oh, okay, I see what they did. So what they did, guys, is kind of like in what you would do for like physics or a lot of others, like obviously in this problem, but I saw this a lot when I was in college in physics, right? Which is where all physics was in my college experience for obviously the first 2 semesters of physics was you got an equation sheet, you got a problem, and all you had to do was figure out the variables out of that problem and then plug them into some equation. That's all physics was, in my honest opinion. Now, yeah, I did have some theory in there where you had to maybe write some stuff and explain some things, but from my experience, the testing was you had some paragraph problem, you had to deduce or extract the variables out of it and plug that into some equation for, and obviously the circumstance you were working with. And so you had to be familiar with the equations and what they did, but it wasn't too hard in that case. So we know that f of n is going to be equal, less than or equal to this function here. So what we'll do is we'll say, we'll take our original d of n function, which is less than or equal to some constant c1, right, like above, right, this one from here. And we are going to plug in that f of n function right here. So this is going to be times some value of c underscore 2 times g of n, right? Just like that. So then we can distribute the c1 across the function, right? So we'll have d of n is less than or equal to so we have c1 initially times c underscore 2, right? And then we have this times that whole function times a c1 times g of n, right? Just like that. So we don't really care about this. This is arbitrary, but this does skew our function even more. But these are all constants coming together, multiplying. So in terms of PEMDAS, it doesn't really matter. It just creates a larger constant. So this then would result in d of n being equal to O of g of n time. Awesome. Sweet, we were able to figure that out, right? By plugging in this f of n. So we were on the right track with our original thinking, but we could actually just directly show it. I think both circumstances would work, but ours would just be less likely to happen. Pardon me. Like so. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy this into the almighty orb and see what it says. There's a minor issue with the multiplication in your step. Let's refine it. Start with these assumptions. Substitute f of n, right? Simplify the expression. C1 wouldn't be multiplied. C1 would have to be multiplied to the g of n as well. Since their constants is equal to c, the threshold minor fixed. Your original steps incorrectly included multiply c1 in the last line, resulting in you would have to distribute the c1 1 to the gn. No? In this case, distributing C1 to Gn is not necessary because of the way constants are handled in big O notation. We know by substituting f of n in the first inequality, it just simplifies to this. Here, C1, C2 is a product of the constants, and big O notation constants are not distributed across Gn because Gn is a variable function that denominates the growth. Okay, so it wouldn't actually apply in terms of like a like term. So this would not be like there, like that. Okay. And it would not go. Interesting. All right, Muna says, download a Python crash course. I finished chapter 1 and set up my programming environment, currently studying chapter 2. Well, awesome, Muna. That's really good news. I'm happy that you are making that push forward. You know what they say is the hardest part about, doing a new hobby is just starting. I like to think about it as one day or day one, right? Would you rather, everybody says, oh, let's get to it one day. I'll do it one day. But, today could just be day one rather than one day, just by flipping those two words simply. So really, proud of you. Super good news that you're, taking that on and adding a new skill under your belt. Feel free to use the try it yourself videos on my channel currently to reference. Obviously, give them a go yourself, and then I have my solutions uploaded to the channel. I need to do more videos on those. I need to just grind out like a whole chapter's worth in one day, but yeah, I just uploaded a couple days ago the chapter 3.1, 3-2, and 3-3 solutions. So I need to get through chapter 3 here on those solutions. But yeah, I'm just going back through and answering them. Ballin' Upco says, what makes you motivated to study DSA? Yeah, so I'll give a quick anecdote here. Pardon me, I'm talking a lot. Like I said, I'm a formulation chemist in my professional occupation. And in a lot of circumstances for some of the products I build and I specialize in is I have been trained on how to formulate and compute a chemical matrix by hand, for my specific company and its products. And this honestly is pretty monotonous and time consuming and takes a lot of just energy by me to complete. And so I one day was thinking, I really wish I had a computer that was able to do this for me rather than just me constantly having to do this and spend the hours computing this matrix, and through trial and error and through past experience, getting the matrix done. And so that just kind of did this deep dive into learning. And then recently, that was back when I first started, and I haven't actually accomplished that goal yet of solving that matrix, but hopefully eventually we can get there. But recently, we are working on the back half of our streams, sorry guys, I bumped my computer there and it relaunched my dock. Let me go ahead, I apologize. My dock is pretty sensitive for where it plugs into my laptop. So let me go ahead. I think my screen is going to be frozen now. Okay, there we go. Now we're good. Sorry about that. Pardon. So in our what we're currently working on, the small business manager is we're going to be managing a lot of inventory items. And so we're going to need have various ways to sort and filter them. And so if the users and that use this program have thousands of items, tens of thousands of items in their inventory, we're going to want a way to be able to filter and access those items, and sort those items in a efficient manner. So we're going to directly be implementing this learning of DSA into an actual project here and get hands-on experience with it. So stay tuned when we get to there, but we are adding in features slowly, little by little, for this project that was very similar to the features that we saw in my previous two projects. We're just kind of leveling up and building up slowly, little by little, for our learning. Right? It's not all in one day. We're doing this over the course of weeks on the stream. It's not a race here. So we've already, but we, it adds up quickly. We've already built 2 projects so far. All right. Cool. Let's continue here. We got 3 R3.14 underscore key dot pi. Cool. So show that O of max of the set f of n g of n is equal to O of f of n plus g of n. Oh boy. This is gonna be a doozy. I can already tell. Looking at this, I don't have any idea where to start. Show O of max for the set f of n g of n is equal to O of f of n plus g of n. Ballin' Up Co says, that's pretty cool, man. I think the most intriguing part of the art of programming is the many applications that can be used in various different combinations of the field. Exactly. It's really, I found that it's just completely limited to your own willingness to, I did it again. Why is it doing that? So frustrating. Sorry. I gotta stop bumping my desk super hard like that. Okay, let's relaunch. I gotta do the thing again. Okay, there we go. Okay, so where would we go about solving this one? So if we're gonna find the max of these functions, right? The max is going to search and iterate through in O of f of n time. So we know that O, we know that the function max for the tuple f of n, is it a tuple? I don't know if I'm saying that right. For the tuple, right? Is going to be so max tuple. Hello, Roith. I appreciate you coming back and joining us. Does anybody have any idea of how we should go about and solve this one? I'm not gonna front you guys. I am kind of stuck here. Show that O of max f of n g of n is equal to O of f of n plus g of n. So we know that max is going to, let me see this. So for this line of code, max is equal to the tuple of f of n g of n. This is just a max function call on a tuple of the 2 functions. Yes, refers to take the maximum values between f of n and g of n at a given input n. It does not necessarily imply a function call in code, but represents the mathematical operation of comparing f of n and g of n for each n and returning the larger value. If you write this in code, it might look like a max function call depending on the programming language. F of n and g of n are assumed to be function calls or expressions. Max is built in. Okay, so this is going to return max of f of n, g of n how can we show this? I know that, right? I know in my mind that this is going to be an O of f of n time, or O of n time plus n. It's going to equal this, right? It makes sense because by determining the max of these, all you're doing is searching through the n values of these two functions. Anybody have any ideas? Hmm. It's going to just seek the max. So walk me through how I could prove that this is O f n plus g of n. Prompt me with questions to gauge my understanding and coach me to the answer. Okay. Let's break this down and walk through the reasoning. We'll focus on proving that, right, that is true. I'll guide you through with questions. Start with the definition of big O. To prove something is big O of another function, we recall that the definition of big O can you state the definition of big O notation? What does it mean for a function to be O of h of n? So function f of n is less than or equal to some constant c times h of n. Exactly. The definition of big O states that, right, like just what we wrote, for some constant c that's greater than 0, it's positive, and for for sufficiently large n. Now let's apply this to your problem. Break it down. We want to show that the max is bounded by some constant multiple of f of n plus g of n. In other words, we need to find some constant c in n0. Okay, let's think about the behavior. What is the maximum of f of n and g of n? How can this be expressed mathematically? Okay, we want to show that max tuple f of n to g of n is bounded by some constant multiple of f of n plus g of n. In other words, we need to find constant c and n naught such that for all n values greater than or equal to n naught. So max f of n is greater than or equal to c times f of n plus g of n. Yeah, so that's what I was starting to write up here. So we were on the right track with the format of getting our big O notation equation set up, right? Now let's think about the behavior of max. What is the maximum of function of n and g of n? How can this, so the max would be n. I think you might be referring to the maximum value between f of n and g of n, not necessarily a specific value like n. I think you might be referring to the maximum value between f of n and g of n, not necessarily a specific value like n. The maximum of f of n and g of n is simply the larger of the two functions at each point n. Yes, obviously. Mathematically, the larger, okay, yeah, for whichever one's greater. So for each n, we are taking the maximum value between f of n and g of n. We need to show that this maximum value can be bounded by some constant multiple of f of n plus g of n. So find an upper bound. Now to proceed with the proof, let's analyze the relationship between max f of n and g of n and f of n plus g of n. If f of n is greater than or equal to g of n, then the max of these numbers is equal to f of n. If g of n is greater, right, then it's just the inverse. The g of n is greater. In either case, we know that max f of n g of n is less than or equal to f of n plus g of n. So this says, now to proceed with the proof, let's analyze the relationship between the max f of n g of n tuple and f of n plus g of n. So if f of n is greater than g of n, then we know that the max call will result in f of n. But if g of n is greater than or equal to f of n, the max call will result in g of n. In either case, I'm not really following step 3 here. I am not following. Let's walk you through this in more detail. We need to prove that max, right? We need to prove this. We know that this will always be larger, always be the larger of the two values f of n and g of n. Okay, yes, we know that. So case 1 where f of n is greater than or equal to, in this case, the maximum value between f of n and g of n is f of n. So the max would result in f of n. Now let's compare this to f of n plus g of n. F of n is less than or equal to f of n plus g of n. This is true, obviously, because we are adding a non-negative value, g of n, to f of n. Okay, yeah, right? Yes, that makes sense, right? So if f of n is greater than gn, we know that's going to be okay, yes. Okay, so I get what it's saying, right? So the max value determined between these two tuples will be less than or equal to um, the resulting function, right? So if f of n is the max, right? Well, if we have f of n here and add some value of g of n on top of that, well, that's going to be less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to some value on the left side, which was just the f of n. So okay, so no, so we in either situation we either situation by adding the function smaller function to the max result will show our O big O equation to be true. Exactly. In both cases, whether f of n is greater than or equal to g of n, or g of n is greater than or equal to f of n, by adding the smaller function, the one that isn't the maximum, to the larger one, you're always going to get a result that is greater than or equal to the minimum function, to the maximum function. This is the key idea of proving this, right? Okay, so let's try to explain this in our terms here. So, if max, so what we'll do is we'll take this portion right here. We'll say if max f of n g of n is, we'll say if f of n is greater than or equal to g of n, right? Then max f of n will result in f of n. Right? Whereas in this circumstance, if g of n is greater than or equal to f of n, we can do the max here, and then this is going to be equal to g of n. Okay? So in either of these circumstances that we are given, right, it's going to result into either one of these time notations. And so we can basically are saying we're just adding these together as we're doing two comparisons. These aren't like a nested loop where we're multiplying these two together to have an O of n squared time complexity. We're just having either circumstance of providing the max is f of n or the max is g of n. In those cases, the time complexity would be O of f of n plus g of n. Because it's not nested or anything according to this max function from what we can tell, and there's only just two basic possible outputs that can be provided, and we can just add those outputs together because obviously no nesting is being taken place, no exponential function or no exponent necessary, so we can just add them together. So then this results into, this shows that right, if f of n is greater than or equal to g of n, then max equals f of n. And since f of n is less than f of n plus g of n, so we'll say here f of n is less than, right, because this is the result of max, right? So this is where I'm taking the result of max, right? I'm plugging this directly into this section of our code above. So, right, I'm just taking the result of max, one of the two possible options in this tuple, and I'm plugging it in directly for this variable, just like we would be able to in programming. We can plug in the answer into this variable. So this would result in c underscore 1 times f of n plus g of n, right? Perfect. So if you think about this and use dummy numbers, let's say that, for example, we'll say, for example, f of n is 10 and g of n is 5, right? So the max would result would be 10 f of n, right? So then if we do this for down here, so f of n, 10, is going to be less than or equal to some constant c1 times 10 plus 5, right? And this is going to be true, right? This is true. Because even if we have a constant here, we will be, right? Now, constant has to be positive in this case, right? No, because it has to do with time complexity. These are separate, like that problem said earlier. All right. So the same thing can be then said if g of n here, right? So I'll copy this code. I'll put it down below. So g of n is going to be 10. I'll just do a different example. I'll do like 30. I'll do like 7 for f of n. Well, this is going to be 30, right? And then we'll take this code snippet from here, paste it there, come back, edit tab, go in to there, say this is, so then we have 30 plus 7. This is for g of n. Right? Cool. That's how we answered that problem. Awesome, guys. Theed says, what are you doing? Big O notation exercises? Yes, exactly. We are doing big O notation exercises, getting comfortable understanding this formula for big O, and interpreting it under various circumstances. All right. Hold on one second here, guys. Appreciate you guys joining me this evening. How is your Sundays going? Hope they are going good. Okay, let's go ahead and shift focus. I think that's a good place. What is 315 very difficult? Show the f of n is O of g of n if and only if g of n is omega f of n. Okay, I'm going to hold off on that one until probably tomorrow, but this is going to do it for this portion of the stream for today. We are going to then shift focus now on the small business manager right now and work on that for a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and just push this here. Git add, git commit. We'll say continued study, continued chapter 3 reinforcement. All right, continue chapter 3 reinforcement problems, and then let's push this for you guys to get access to. All right, so now our current live, all those problems that we solved today, 3, 10, 11, 12, and 14 are, or 11, 12, 13, and 14 are pushed to the repo to GitHub. All right, let's go ahead and shift a little focus here to our small business manager. Work on this for a little bit. Okay, should I do a general overview of the project, or are you guys okay with what are kind of up to date so far with what we've got? Do we have a lot of new people here that need a Theed says, yes, interesting. So this boils down to documenting your progress. Yes, exactly. That's the whole point of this stream. It's basically a video log series to make the studying process A, more enjoyable, B, stick better in my own mind, and C, potentially help other people. So A, more enjoyable, I am interacting with people, I'm creating a sort of community as well on the side, in addition to learning this material, rather than just having this be a sole focus. I'm now having this learning bring in another avenue of my life, create another hobby through YouTube and things like that. So it creates another skill set in that area. Two, I'm reinforcing the material, right? So I have to go back through and edit these materials. I have to go back through and watch these streams if I want to see certain things or answer certain questions. I have to interact with the comments where people ask questions. I have to obviously talk to people on stream and answer their questions. I can ask the stream for help, and so basically through that I have a physical record of everything I've learned up to this point, and I can go back at any time and reference that record, and so can you guys. And that leads me to point 3, is that you guys, other beginners out there, now, like I said in the past, the whole point of the stream is not to teach you anything. I'm not a teacher. I am just a peer with you. I'm on the same level as you guys, a peer learning this. I'm nose to the grind, just like you guys. And if you happen to learn something from my mistakes or my successes or my learning, that being for a broader term, then that is a very, positive byproduct of the channel, and a goal of it at the end of the day as well. But you know, I'm not you shouldn't view me as like a teacher or anything, because I am just a peer as well, learning this alongside of you, and I will probably make mistakes, and I get corrected all the time in the chat, which is perfectly fine. I am not, don't have such an ego that I get offended or anything. I encourage you guys to correct me and tell me where I'm wrong, because that just further improves my abilities and gives me even more insight into how to better program and things like that. So it's all kind of, I know that's kind of a ramble and a lot, but yeah, it's very thought out, and there is purpose behind this. And so if that's something you're interested in, um, let me, know if you're if this is definitely something. Obviously, people are interested in, as we've been growing on the channel. We just crossed over 300 subscribers this stream. So honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, guys. It's been super motivating to learn and continue learning, especially on those days after my 9 to 5 where I'm just drained and I don't want to do anything else. But I've been keeping the streak alive, streaming here every day so far. I probably will miss a day maybe in the future for some unforeseen circumstance, but it's okay. It's all supposed to be fun, and we're taking the pressure off of learning. We're not trying to burn out here. Anyways, sorry. We'll get back to the regular scheduled programming here. It's like quote unquote Git as a video. Yes, right. It's a version control of ourselves almost. Right? And it'll be fun to go back and see like our thought process a year or two from now. Go back and see where we were, and it'll be kind of cringe, I bet, but it'll be fun. We can definitely do that. All right, so we have some functions that we need to add in here. So right now we're working on the inventory side of things. We have the add item, so I need here. I'm gonna say need. Just to give me a visual cue that I need to continue implementing. So we have the run add item here, where we're prompting the user for just the attributes associated with the items. So generate item number, takes in the item number, right? And takes in the last item in the list, returns 1 if that item's not found. Generate date created. We need to implement some sort of feature here to check that the date created was inputted correctly. But let's go ahead and work on this part. So we have date created. Any other quantity? Quantity of these items, we will say quantity is none. If quantity, else put 1. So we'll say here will just be another input for quantity. Cool. So they can input the quantity there. And so then what we'll do is we will actually go take all of these and go item, and we'll create an item. We'll do item name is equal to item name, right? Just like that. We'll do item cost is equal to item cost. We'll do item size is equal to item size. right? Everything will just match up one to one here. Super easy and super intuitive. And then item number will equal item number, and then I'm going to wrap this item number, and then we have date created equals date created, and then we have quantity equals quantity. Perfect. So what I did was I'm just prompting the user for these individual instance variables or these attributes for they're required to make this object. And then obviously because we need the user to add these parameters, and then we're just going to create the item itself here. So then we need to actually append the item to the list here. So we'll need to go all items, all items dictionary. We'll access the quote items key, and then we're going to dot append this item right there. So that's going to append this item to the items list. So let's go ahead and see. We need to actually add in a check here. So print, we need to try to get a name in the form of a string of cost. This has to be in the form of a integer. So it would be because we do have to handle the currency sometime as well. We need to keep that in mind. We need to be able to the user is going to have to enter in dollars, such as 2.50 for $2.50. We're going to have to take that, split it via the decimal, and then convert those to integers and combine them into a 250 cents, and then use that to calculate our money. Nemin, I appreciate you joining and leaving a message. Thanks so much. He says, what VS Code theme are you using? The defaults? I am using, let's see here. I gotta go, what is it here? How do I forgot how to find it. How do you see it? I think, yeah, I'm not using any. I think you'd see it right here. I'm using black. I'm using live server. I have live server prettier. I have Pylance. I have Python, obviously, debugger. I have Rainbow CSV, and I have VS Code icons. So I'm not using, yeah, I'm just using the default. I like the default. I think it's nice. Yeah. Thank you, though, for leaving a message and joining in. I appreciate you. Through the settings, bottom right. Extensions. So here we got some comments. A JP for Vient. I appreciate you coming in, leaving a message. Hello, how you doing? Thanks so much for joining the channel here. And Demi says, is this a project on the Python Crash Course book? No, this is a personal project. I have never actually completed any of the projects at the end of Python Crash Course. I much rather would just dive into my own personal projects, I think. But because I have some experience I created a project for CS50P, and I think the point of the CS50, I mean, for the Python Crash Course projects is to get you into a knowledge of how to actually get started working with projects and running. But once you kind of already have that formula developed for how you personally like to get projects going, I think it's kind of arbitrary, or not really necessary, but the projects in the Python crash course do tell you how to go through like Django and Matplotlib and stuff like that. So they do have some modules and extensions for um, that you get familiar with them. But no, this is an independent project. This is the small business manager. Okay, let's go settings, settings, theme. All right, yeah, this is what I have. So I am default icon theme, dark modern color theme, right? Dark modern, dark high contrast, light high contrast, light modern, VS icons. Yeah. So what this project that we're working on is a small business manager. So in the side of this one tool or client, the user will be able to load all their inventory into the manager, be able to access those items through various options, right? So I'll just go. Let's go ahead and do an example here. So I'll go. We need to add in some, some error checking and some things like that because we are asking for user input and we need some required user input types. So we do have to add in that, but for right now, just for some safety and security. But right now, we can just run it via my um, repeated item number. Over here, need item size here, rather. Right? Okay, so let's see. We have objects. Yeah, so we have predetermined objects in our inventory here. So what should happen is when we create an object here, we're going to create an item. It's going to add it to our item category file here, and it should populate because it's going to load this pre-existing item in when we load our program or launch our program. And it should then populate the next item with the next item number according to this generate item number function we wrote last time, which we try to seek the last item in the list for the items category within our all items dictionary, and we return the value plus the item number of the last item. So we just increment the last item number by 1 to get the next item in the available slot, the next available item number. Else, right, except we get an index error, meaning that this list is empty. We return 1 here. We could have done an if statement here to say if all items, right? So if they're all items, meaning that if there are any in the list, but we don't need to do a check immediately right off the jump. We can do this try except to just kind of clean it up, I think. So let's go ahead and just do this as an example here. Let's run. Let's see what happens. Okay, I got some repeated arguments here. So hold on, let me fix this. Item name, cost, size. Item number. Item number, date created, quantity. Okay, now we're good, I think. Let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so now we're into the project here. This is an example of it running live right here. So would you like to open the Small Business Manager 1.0 by Michael Deming? I show you where that code is coming from right now. So I'll show you where this is coming from. So we have our main all items dictionary, which is a global variable, where we have a globals file, which just has like our licensing information, our titles and stuff. So I just have a constant variables here declared in all caps via Python. In Python, you can't make constant variables, but this is just a notation known by Python users to not really mess with this stuff. So I just have these global variables that I'm importing in, that won't change unless I change them. We have an all items global variable here, which is just houses a dictionary, which initially gets populated with all the items pre-existing in the system. So now we might want to think about a way of implementing some sort of data structure that pre-exists, so we don't have to immediately add every instance of the item right off the jump every single time. But For now, this is kind of the best we can do with our knowledge. We kind of are bottlenecked with features. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of knowledge on like external data structures and things like that. Maybe like SQL. I don't even know what would really work. But yeah, for now we have three categories obviously per our class. We have an item class, which is the base kind of our base class. That can be items can then be converted into for sale items, which have a listing price and a date listed, and then for sale items can be converted to sold items, which have a sold price and a date sold. So yeah, those are the attributes for the items itself. And so right now we are at this portion here where we are in our main loop, just a main function here to get started. And would you like to open up this? We're at this line right here, right? So this is what our code is running right now. So I'll press 1 to actually enter the program, and what we have a couple of functions here, load file functions. They're going to load files. These functions within the structure of the function return a list of all of the items pre-existing in the files detected, and just append those to, we're going to append those values as the all items from above, right? So we'll go ahead and run here, and so right then and there, as soon as we pressed 1 right there, under the hood, the program read all of our pre-existing items in these files above. So if we had hundreds of items here, the program would have read them and loaded them into the system. So now if we go ahead and press inventory, press 1, we are met with the inventory manager screen, and we can press 1 to add an item. So let's go to the run the add item screen here. So if we press 1, we will run the add item function. And now we're at this part, right? So we have print add new inventory item, add new item to inventory, right? We have the item name. So we'll give it, we'll make this cotton shirt, right? We'll just say it's these people sell clothes, right? Cotton shirt. They have the cost. We'll say that this is 10. We need to add a space here, it looks like, for some formatting, so I'll add that. So 10. Item size, we'll say, is a medium. We need to have a detection for sizing as well, so we will implement that as well. So we need to add in a so for cost, we need to user enters in dollars. Need way to check for decimal and split, right? We need for size, we need to implement a way to check to make sure check for proper sizes, or check. We need to check for valid size, right? So we'll have like a tuple in here for sizes, and then we'll have to check if that size that the user provided is in that tuple for the specific business. Now we can, for item number, this already does what it does. Date created, this does what it does. We need to actually finish the date created, finish this function below. This one's not entirely done. And then quantity, we ask for quantity. We need to add an int check here. And then this just adds the item. Okay, so if we continue on with our program, put medium, use today's date, we will use today's date as our receiving date for the item. Quantity will also just be 1. Now let's see what happens here. Okay. Quantity 1, all items. So we got item cost. Oh, cost of good. So it's not item cost, cost of good was the variable name we used, so we need to do cost of good equals cost of good, right? Okay, so let's go back and let's try to run this program again. So as you can see, we still have that item, that original item in there. It doesn't duplicate items or recreate them or anything. So it read that there. We'll go inventory, add item. We'll do name, we'll do cotton shirt, right? Cost would be like 10. Item size, medium. Today's date, yes. Quantity will be 1. Okay, boom, right then and there. Now, to see if that worked, guys, we need to just exit out. And if it saves that new item right here, if we exit and save, we should see a new line item added here for all those parameters. So let's go ahead and go main menu, exit, yes. Oh! Let's go. Sorry if your ears got blown out right there, but it worked. Woo! Yes. Okay, so all of those instance variables that we, manually inputted or asked the user for were successfully populated in generating the actual item object. So now, and as you can see, the item number was successfully populated to the next item. So super awesome. So now let's go ahead and test this though for no items in the list. I'm going to go ahead and copy this just on my keyboard for now, or I'm gonna, yeah, I'll Command X this to get rid of it, and I'll run the program one more time here. Now let's see if we add that item, will we get that original or that item number 1 to be brought back up. So let's say cotton dress or cotton shirt, right? Whatever. Cost 10, item size medium. Would you like to use today's date? So, right, this prompt right here is we should maybe ask use today's date for item purchase or enter. So maybe we should ask for a more specific user. So if the user says sorry if the user presses 1, then it just uses the current date. Else, right, if the user enters 2, which is right here, this is where this code is coming from right here, then we need to allow the user to enter a date, and we have to make sure that it's in this format. Then we have to take that date string object, convert it into a date time date, and then use that instead, I believe. So, or we just have to make sure it's in this string because datetime will try to read it as this format. It's time to open some champagne. Woo! Right, that's good. All right, we have some comments here. We got JP4 Event says, greetings from Argentina. Do you work freelance? I have never considered working freelance. Honestly, I figured that I would need a lot more skills and in the programming and developing more robust code and things like that um, individual companies or businesses might want to use. And so that's the whole purpose of this, right? This project we're working on is to get that going. So maybe down the road we could open up some freelance. But no, I currently work a 9-to-5 job as a formulation chemist. I have a degree in human biology and a minor in chemistry with a focus on the chemistry aspect of the human biological physiology and stuff. So, so I've been doing that since 2021 is when I graduated. So I've been a formulation chemist for coming up on 3 years now, maybe a little over 3 years, and it's been great. But yeah, just adding more new skills to my skill sets here, programming, right? I like doing this kind of stuff. So, Deed says, congratulations. Yes, Debbie says, great job. Well, we couldn't do without everybody here. The motivations, right? Erica says, you're so motivating. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. I have to ask, do you brainstorm the project by yourself? Because it's very impressive if you're just starting out. Well, I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just kind of thought of this. So actually, I currently co-manage and run a small business where we do resell secondhand clothing for a fair price, and we're kind of like an online thrift store almost because we have that an environmental passion and a passion for fashion and things like that. And so this kind of just sparked the idea. Before I was having to, I created my own Excel documents for tracking all of my inventory and costs of goods and things like that. And I just really wasn't, it just has a lot of work and self management. So I wanted to just create a program that would do it for me. So why not? Let's just use the channel and do this. So yeah. So yeah, that's what sparked this idea basically. And um, we're build don't think that this wasn't just a off the spring kind of cuff thing. We have been building up to this moment so far. My CS50P project at the end of August, beginning of September that I submitted was an inventory management system that basically just loaded in the items and displayed them to you, and then manage them. You could edit some parameters and stuff like that. But then on the channel we developed live. We made a whole project on the channel for the task tracker application. We wrote that all on the channel, and you can go back and watch those streams if you want to. The task tracker took the inventory to a next level, and created these objects for tasks then that could have dates associated with them. We used the date time module, and got familiar with that to actually manipulate dates and these date time elements. And we had to figure out all that, and we wrote a program based on that, and now we're building it even further, taking those elements from the previous two projects even further, of creating an inventory system that now will be able to like generate reports for financial statements, costs of these goods sold. It could, rather than just managing these inventory items and converting them into sales, we can then take that one step further and actually generate sales reports, income statements, cost of goods sold reports. Maybe we could add in a feature to track expenses for the business as well. So it could really get quite large if we wanted to, and we could add in quite many features and have this can be a conglomerate for a business, not only small but maybe medium to large. So we'll just take it step by step here and see how far we can go with it. Yeah. Uh, Eric says, "Is your goal to become a software engineer?" I don't really know. I don't have a lot of, I don't have a future. I see myself as this. I mainly just like to roll with the punches. Like I said, I'm currently a formulation chemist. I have a 9 to 5 job that I went to school for, and um, I in chemistry and biology. So I'm currently doing that, and if I, can intertwine programming into that, then that's fantastic. But if I have opportunities down in software engineering, I might explore those. So, because I really enjoy doing this, and also the stream is fairly successful right now, and we're getting a lot of growth and a lot of positive feedback. So maybe that even can be an avenue of, you know, we never know. So I don't know what the future holds, but we're just gonna keep streaming and keep moving along. And I appreciate you guys joining me here for the journey. And don't forget to practice coding yourself as well. And if you're watching me, feel free to code alongside me, do these functions with me so you understand what's going on. I pushed my task tracker project to GitHub so you can actually see that on your computer. If you pull it for yourself and clone it, you can see what's happening. Now I will say I have learned from the code I wrote, and I will say that it's not the best, right? I am a beginner, and looking back on that code, I have read through it and I say, oh, I would definitely do something. I would definitely write this differently. Like before, when I was creating tasks, I was storing everything within the class objects, the class itself, and it kind of made it so that if other people wanted to use the class, it kind of was bounding. It was limiting because you were also storing objects. You had a lot of methods that would, then you had a lot of, I had to implement class methods to actually manipulate because all the data was storage was handling in the class. So now I've separated everything through progressing and learning and realizing I don't want to do that. I can much rather clean it up. I can just have these class objects just on their own be created, and then I can just create methods within my actual program here. I call them operational functions written below, which like the create menu, the clear terminal, the load file, save file, all these functions I previously had in my class, and I realized that that's just a clutter and a unnecessary and a inefficient way of doing things because I was having to call everything from the class. I was having to, I bet you that was just increasing, time, on a minor scale, but overall it would just lead to inefficient programming. So we're definitely learning from our mistakes in our past and we're building upon them. So if that's obviously something you're interested in, then please follow along. We are grinding away here. We've been going every day for the past, over the past week and adding in and just ramping up our schedule here. So Theed says you've got a pretty advanced way of thinking for a beginner. It's impressive. Well, I really appreciate that. I have put in a lot of just physical brain power in just thinking about how these functions work because like I found myself throughout my day on my daily commutes to work, just going over these in my head over and over and over again, like Big O. For the past 3 days, it's been in my head nonstop, kind of like a song on replay, and because of that, I've really gotten familiar with Big O quite fast, and I've been be able to solve those problems using the Big O formula, the physical mathematical formula, and I've been able to be fairly confident in solving those problems without too much GPT, the almighty orb help. So I appreciate those comments, and we are. I, I will say, I have graduated college. I do have a STEM background, so it's not like I have, it's not like I have a lack of education background. So do take that with a grain of salt. And when don't make comparisons. Comparisons can be killer when viewing your own progress. But I do have a background with some education and higher level education and stuff. So take that with a grain of salt. Demi says, just subscribe, keep up the good work. See you later. I appreciate you coming in, subscribe, and thank you so much for the support. It's honestly overwhelming and mind blowing, and thank you so much. Eric says, love the content, keep grinding the videos. Yes, I need to keep more videos up besides the streams, but when you stream for 2-3 hours a day, it makes and you work 9 to 5, it's hard to make the videos. But distracted, thanks so much for coming. Yes, let's get grinding here. Okay, so we successfully now are, we have the add item function working. So we need to add in these checks now. So I'm gonna first, what do I want to do? I'm gonna stream for a little bit longer. It's gonna not time for dinner time, but let's add in some more features here. So they check the valid size. So when we need to add in a tuple of sizes, I kind of want to see, this is where it gets difficult because the user might not have like all of the need for different sizing, or they might have different sizing parameters, which could be difficult. Now, when the program first runs, should I prompt the user for their specific sizing parameters and then have that save? Or just for now, hard code sizing into the program and then maybe make it later for the ability for the user to edit into like the settings of the program? I'm kind of wanting to do the latter because it just seems easier right now. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go, I don't think I want to make it a global variable. Let's keep it local here within the add item class. And let's put, before we, up here, I'm going to say, we're going to have a tuple for item or available sizing is going to be a tuple of we have extra small, small, medium. No, I want to do small, medium, 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 large, large, XL, and double XL. Now, should we be more inclusive and add in a double XS? I don't think it would really hurt, no. So, but the problem with this, guys, like I said earlier, is we need to keep in mind that this is now hard-coded in our program. So thinking about it, and oftentimes this is what helps me work through these projects is I always keep a user's point of view. Whenever I'm adding in a line of code, I always ask myself or think beforehand, how would this affect the user? How would the user use this? So, so now the user is forced to use this sizing bounds. Unfortunately, now I might add a feature to override this later, but I think I need to keep it for now, just for simplicity's sake, because I don't want to deal with it, to be honest. So we have available sizes here that get ran locally. So we'll need to ask for the item size. We'll say we need to say while true, right? We need to add a while loop here to prompt the user for a size. And we'll say if item size is not in available sizing, right? We are going to continue the loop, and we're going to print here print please please use let's say available. We'll use an F string here and say available sizes, and then we'll just put here available sizing, right? So this will provide a print statement showing the available sizing and continue the prompt until the user actually provides a size in the appropriate list here, the tuple here, right? So I made this a tuple because these are ordered by size, just in case we don't want this to be mutable. This is not mutable, right? We can't change these. Okay, so we ask the user for size. If they don't provide the size that we want or one that's available, then we'll say no available sizes is fine, I guess. We'll print out that the available sizing. If they don't give it to us, we'll continue asking, else we'll break out of this while loop and continue on with the next. So let's go ahead and test that out. I'll Command C here, clear. Let's go ahead and add those items back into the list here. I'll get rid of the second one. Okay. Let's go ahead and test this out. So if we run, oh, whoops, sorry. Whoops, run, here we go. So if we run, we enter in, we go into the inventory, we add an item. We go item name, this is gonna be cotton shirt. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, let's get out of this. We found a bug. We didn't find a bug. SSLORL is paying attention to the stream. Thanks so much. I appreciate you. He is right. So we have a bug here. This is not supposed to be one string. This is supposed to be individual strings. So thank you so much for catching that error. That would have saved us a bug in that run. All right, like that, like that, like that. So, sorry, bear with me here, and boom. Cool. So now we actually are detecting individual data points rather than just one long string. It would have tried to have found that whole long string in our tuple here. So thank you so much, SSLowRL, for giving us that bug fix. I appreciate you. All right, let's go ahead and move on here. Enter in. All right, let's go to inventory, press 1. Let's add an item by pressing 1. Item name is going to be cotton shirt. Cost is 10. The size. Okay, let's give a size that doesn't exist. Let's say that this is 32 inches. Ooh, it's working. It's working. All right, let's say that it is what's another size of like thing of clothing, but like a shoe size, like 10. Oh, not available. Okay, so I think though, because this needs capitals, we need to actually we have another bug here. So I'm gonna Control C out of this and clear. That caught something. We need to go item size. Is we need to add in a dot. Um, Capitalize, right? So if we add a capitalize method at the end of this, this will, um, no, this just makes the first letter. So we need to upper, sorry. So we'll add an upper method. If you guys aren't familiar with the upper method in Python, when you apply a dot, some sort of function, this is a method that applies directly on the instance, right? So I'm converting my response, the user's response, to uppercase directly. If I was calling a function of like uppercase, there probably isn't one, right? If I was calling uppercase to this, right? If I had an uppercase function, what this would do would be create a new object. Most likely is from from what I've seen, but the methods actually apply the formatting directly to the current object rather than a copy. So we're going to uppercase all of the value that the user provides. So now if I run this, this will properly detect those uppercase values because I don't want to have to um, upper them myself as a user. I think that's would be more monotonous to have to shift, provide a capital every time, and provide more error. So we will um, we'll enter one here, inventory, add item, so cotton shirt. So we're finally getting there. Cost would be 10. Item size. So if we have 32, it doesn't work. We have available sizes are right there. We would need to say, okay, so let's do extra small, right? That didn't work either. Oh, we have a error here. Sorry. So we have a if item name is not in. We don't want that. We want item size. I apologize. So size. That's why it wasn't working. We had the wrong variable call here. So when we have I was moving fast with my typing and I was autofilling, and so when you have variables that have a lot of the same terminology, it can you might have some errors. So just make sure to check that if you guys do something like that. So okay, and then we'll go inventory, add item, cotton shirt. Cost would be 10. Item size, if we put 32 here, that would not work. So if we put extra small, yes, we got accepted. All right, and then we put today's date, yes. Quantity would be 1. and then that added the item. So if we go 5 and then go exit with 3, yes, and we look at the items here, cotton shirt was added in. Aha! Woo! Um, and it was appropriately added in with the 1 because it was the first item in our list, right? So that was another thing we needed to check, was that with values that aren't in with items that with if you're like freshly starting the program, then we need to auto, and there's no current items in there, then we need to, the first item would automatically get that 1. So let's just make sure that that worked, right? Go to inventory, add item, cotton shirt, cost 10, size. Let's make sure we do G, that doesn't work. We do 10, that doesn't work. So we need to do, let's say it's a large. Okay, right? We can do a lowercase because it auto converts to uppercase and detects that it's that one. We can say yes, we'll use today's date and say a quantity of 1, main menu, exit, and quit. And as you can see, that was added in there. So then let's run this one more time. And if we press 1 here, it's going to auto detect, right, via this step right here. So if the user presses 1 at this point for would you like to open up this, yes or no, it's going to do the load file function we wrote for all of these tags, items, for sale items, and sold items that we created. We created custom type tags associated with this function. If you're interested in seeing how I wrote this load file function, go back and watch a couple of streams ago. It was really interesting if you're interested in how I write, like I used to save files on CSV and stuff. It's a pretty long function. I could optimize this even further to to add the user to just create one function call for all types, but I kind of broke it up to like more of 3 distinct flags for each type, so I can add in the appropriate, because each flag adds an additional couple of parameters, such as like the sold price for sold items. You don't have a sold price for just a regular item because it hasn't been sold yet, right? So that's why I had to kind of differentiate them. Angela Lopez says, is the parentheses in the input correct? Where at? Could you mind telling me, do I have a bug? Uh, if you would mind telling me, I would appreciate it. If I have a bug somewhere for input, let me know. Okay, so we enter this, we go inventory. So I think what we wanted to do is make sure that we can add in a second item here, right? And it gets appropriated with the second item number. So we'll add in an item. We'll say that this one is a Calvin dress, right? Cost of this one was 15. Item size for this one, let's say it's a small. Use today's date, yes. And then quantity would be, let's say we have 1. That got populated, and then let's exit, yes. And then we go to our items folder, or our items file, sorry, and that was successfully populated with the appropriate next item number. So everything works really good, guys. All right, item underscore size. So we have an imp size here, which we have a parentheses here. We're covering our input function, which we have item size. So everything looks good with our parentheses here, closing these. The dot upper, oh, you're saying for right there. I guess you wouldn't need parentheses for the method, right? You could just call dot upper. For dot upper method, do you use at the end? Yes, the upper method in Python requires parentheses at the end, even if there are no arguments. It's because it's a method call. The parentheses are needed to invoke the method. Yeah. So that's why I use parentheses at the end of the upper call, if that's what you're referring to. But the item size has appropriate parentheses for its bounds right here, so I think it's okay. But, all right. Let me go ahead and I'll go go to the bathroom real quick, and I'll be right back, guys. Hold on. All right, sorry guys, I'm back. All right, item size input. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I guess you don't need it, right? You wouldn't need parentheses here. So yeah, I think they're just like with any parentheses, if as long as they're closed, right? I think you can encompass any them in parentheses and it wouldn't affect the formatting. But they were totally not necessary there. Thank you. I got rid of them. Cool. Appreciate you that comment and appreciate you chiming in and correcting me there. Thank you so much. Dat Steele says, "Are you planning on getting a software engineer, or is this just a side thing?" Yeah, so I currently work as a formulation chemist at a biotech company. I have a degree in human biology and a minor in chemistry. So I don't have like a rush or anything or like a super, oh, I need to get a job. Things like that. I currently have a job that I do enjoy and I do something I do like doing. This is just a way to further gain additional skills in a field that I'm very interested in and I enjoy doing. If something does come along down the road, I may consider it and everything, but I don't know. And I think it's good that I have this kind of format because if I have a current job, it definitely takes the stress out of having to learn. I'm not like, oh, I need to keep grinding because I need to get a job. No, it's I need to keep grinding because I want to learn. I want to improve. I want to get better. I'm not pressuring myself with third party um, involvement and stuff. Clips S says, "Congrats on 300 subs. Thank you so much." And yes, thank you to all the new people that. Oh, sorry, I'm got some lemonade here. Thank you to all the new people that joined today and have been joining the streams over the past few days. We've been growing the channel quite rapidly over the past couple of days, and it's really been mind blowing. I've just been kind of watching it and refreshing it every couple of hours, and uh, yeah, I love interacting with you guys. And also, I do have a Discord linked below where I have gathered all of my resources that I'm currently using, such as Python Crash Course, the currently on stream. In the first half of my streams, I read data structures and algorithms in Python to further improve my learning. Right now, we just finished chapter 3, and we're currently working on the end of chapter 3 practice problems, going over big O notation, time complexity, functions, time functions, and big O functions, and all those things. So we're getting a deep dive into this and further, improving our learning and stuff. And we have a couple of books over here off to the side, Python Machine Learning. We got Fluent Python. We'll be diving into all of these books soon after we get done with DSA. Studying this book first. Don't want to start too many projects and not finish them. But yeah, so and then we're just using this to document our progress. So follow along if that is something that you are interested in for sure. But yeah, so on the first half of my streams, I do reading and practice problems. And then on the second half, I do work on the projects. Okay. So now we're able to check for the sizes. We got that done. So let's mark that off our list. So we now need to tackle, unfortunately, the currency. I did not want to do this, to be honest. It's going to be kind of annoying, but we got to do it. So the cost of good. So the user can enter many different things, right? They can enter in whole dollars. They can enter in dollars and cents. They can enter um, like obviously they can mess up and enter something incorrect. So we talked about this in the stream a couple of streams ago of how I wanted to handle this, and we found it best not to use Python's float notation. Now, it would be easy to use a float, but when dealing with currency, floats have some rounding properties and also behave differently on other systems. So we have to keep that in mind when, using other users. So, someone suggested that we use cents or pennies for everything. meaning that if the user enters in dollars, that we convert it into cents and add all the cents and display, and we have to convert back to dollars. So what we can do is we need to say while true while true, we're going to ask the user to do this, right? We're going to ask the user for this. We are going to if quote period in cost of good, we want to cost of good dot split at the period, right? And then this will return dollars and cents, right? This will unpack two variables, dollars and cents. So if the user has a period in the cost of goods sold, we'll do that, right? Elif so then what we need to do is convert we need to do dollars to cents is equal to dollars to cents function. So dollars in cents is equal to dollars 2 cents function. So we'll convert the dollars to cents, and then what we'll do is we're going to so we convert dollars to cents, and then what we need to do is take total, or we need to take cost of good is equal to dollars in cents plus cents. Okay, so what we wrote here was if the user, when they get prompted with the cost of good, we're going to loop them the whole time, right? We're going to loop this prompt, and if the user enters in a period within the cost of good, right? If we have a period in that string, because remember, strings are iterable. We can iterate over string. We can say for value or for character in string if we wanted to. But we're just going to say if period is in the string, we are going to then split on that period, and right, that'll split off cents off to the right and dollars off to the left, which we have distinguished capturing these variables, right? Dollars to cents, dollars, right? We need to add the dollars into there. So then what we're going to do is we create a variable called dollars to cents. We have a function that we're going to write where we'll convert dollars to cents, and we'll take in the dollars to actually convert those dollars variable to cents. And then the total cost of goods will be just the sum of dollars and cents plus cents to get a total cost in cents. So then let's go ahead and let's close up some of this to clean it up. So down here we will do def dollars to cents, right? And this will take in dollars, just like we had before for this specific function. And then it's going to do dollars and cents is going to equal so dollars and cents whoops. So we're going to take in dollars. We have dollars in cents. We're going to take the value of dollars and we're going to multiply this by 100. So this will get us the value in cents. And then we're going to just return dollars and cents, right? So that will simply take the amount of dollars we have. For every $1, we multiply it by 100 to get the amount of cents in the dollar. And so if we have $2, we have 200 cents, $3, 300 cents. If we have 1.5, we get $1.50, 150 cents, right? So then we'll return that value. And then we will, so that will do that. And so let's see if this works. So let's go ahead and going to remove our item that we currently have in there, right? And I'm going to run this program. So oh, hold on. We need to add in a check here. So we have if that. So elif. So if we need to do math on these first, what we need to do is I don't think we can call int on these from here. Oh, hold on.
Vanilla plum cake with the side of
All
fresh
right.
whip. And
All
so
right.
it has plums on the inside too.
Oh boy. Look at this, guys.
And
We
then
got
freshly whipped cream.
we got some good stuff here. Let me show you guys. Okay, look at that. Wow. We have a real special treat on stream here, guys. So this is apple cake? It's what? Apple cake? I don't know. Let's give it a try here. Okay, we got apple cake with some whipped cream. Let's give it a go. That's really good. That's really good, guys. I'll share a bite with you. Here's your guys' bite. That's really good. That's really good. Pardon me, guys. When you're streaming for 2.5 hours, you get a snack. It's only fair. It's only fair. Okay. So we need to add in. So we need to convert these. So these are strings, right? So int dollars. And then int the cents here. There we go. So then let's come down here and then let's say that dollars is already in. Cool. So now that will appropriately take our dollar string and convert it to an integer, and then take our cents and convert it to an integer so we can do this mathematical operation on them. And so now what we need to do is else. So if the user didn't add a period, we can infer that they just typed in the whole dollars, like there's a whole dollar amount. You coming in to try?
I just want to know what you thought.
It was really good.
I put cream because I know you don't like a plain cake. Are the plums okay? Because
No, it's really good. It's like crunchy on the top.
is it moist enough?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Okay, you don't want to be trapped in here. Come on.
Okay. Okay, pardon me, guys. Sorry. If you don't like eating, I'm sorry. or eating sounds. I really am sorry. I need to keep my energy up. I've been streaming for a while. Okay, so else, if the user just entered, that means they just entered a number, right? So we're going to int the cost of good. Yeah, int the cost of good. So we're going to int the cost of good and give back the cost of good. Yeah. Else cost of good is that. So while true, ask them for users. So we actually don't need to loop then here, because they need a value. You need a cost. So should we loop and create like if so if we do keep the loop and say elif here and say if cost good, if there is a cost of good, do this, right? And then break here, else break, and then we'll say else continue, right? So else print please provide a cost of quote cost of good in format in whole dollar or dollar cents format. Right, so please provide a cost of good in whole dollar or dollar dot cents format. So is that a good prompt, you guys think? So please provide a cost of goods sold in whole dollar. What happened here? What the heck? Or dollar dot cents format. So like xx.yy or what, I don't know how to really explain this to the users. So we'll get some experience. So if the user provides a cost of good, meaning that they actually entered one, we need to detect if there's a period in that cost of good, and then we will break it up if there's a period, do the conversion of total to cents, and return. Else meaning that they responded with a whole integer value, then we need to int the cost of goods, do dollars to cents here, and then save cost of goods here, right? And then break. Else print and continue. Cool. So that should take care of that. Any questions on what I did here, guys? So all I did was I encompassed all this in a while loop to kind of isolate this question and repeat it if I don't get the desired output, right? Or input. So I use a Boolean expression to say if cost of goods sold, right? This returns a Boolean value of true or false to move on. So if true, meaning that this will return true if a value is provided, right, in this input. So if cost of goods sold, so if the user provides, a value, it doesn't just enter past it and provide a blank string, then we want to detect a period in there, meaning that they provided dollars dot cents format. We want to split on the period, isolating the dollars and cents. We will convert the dollars to cents by integering the dollars and then saving that as dollars and cents, and then we will sum up the total cost of the good as the dollars and cents plus the integer of cents, right? We had to convert cents to integers because remember, originally the user replied this input into a string, and so we had to split on the string into two separate strings on this decimal and convert those strings into integers. Yes, so Sky Limit, I appreciate you joining and leaving a comment. Thanks so much for leaving a question. The break loop will just at this point, it will break out of this section of code, right? If I can literally just go ahead and minimize this, right? The break loop will break out and move on to line 104 right here and enter into this next while loop, which is another kind of isolated question for the item size. So at this point we get what we want and we can break out. Else we're assuming that the user entered, rather than in cents dot or dollars dot cents format, they entered the cost of the good in whole dollar format, so like $10 or $100. So then we just convert that the cost of good into integer, right? Convert that whole 10 string, that string of 10 as a integer, and then convert it to cents and save that as the cost of the good in cents. So now if we go ahead and run this program, I think, right, we don't have any items in there, so we can create an item. So inventory, let's add an item. Cotton shirt, cost of good. Okay, so the cost, this is where we are. Let's give it in, let's say it was $10.50. So this should give me what? 10 times 100, so 1,000 cents, 1,050 cents, right? For the cost of good when all said and done. We'll say medium, use today's date, and the quantity is 1. Okay, let's exit out. So this saves, and let's see if we get 1,050 for our item cost. Cost of good, 1,050. Woo! Let's have a bite of cake for that one. All right. Okay. Pardon me. So now let's see what happens if we enter like 20, right? A whole integer. So I'm going to run this program again, enter into our business manager, go into the inventory section. We're going to add a new item. We're going to call this, Calvin dress cost. Okay, let's say that this cost us $20. So this is just a whole integer value, no decimal. We are going to enter here. Okay. We get an error. So unbound local error, cannot access local variable dollars in cents where it's not associated with the value. It doesn't like our function, dollars and cents. Oh, wait, no. Oh, I'm sorry. This should be dollars 2 cents function, not dollars in cents. So we had a type error here. We weren't calling the right function. We're calling a variable here. So let's go ahead and run this one more time, guys. Sorry. One, inventory, add item. So this is going to be what, Calvin address cost. So if we do 20, this should give us, right, 20 times 100 is 2,000 cents. So item size is going to be medium. Yes, for today's date. Quantity is 1. Main menu, exit. Yes. So now if we go to items, we should see 20,000. Or sorry, 2,000, I mean. Yes. So 2,000 is appropriate, is added right there. So, and then these are integers. So I think what I need to do though also is in my load file, item cost of good. Okay, so we are converting these when we load them to integers. So good, they are being loaded as integers, so we can further do data on them, on pre-existing items. So awesome, guys, that's super cool. We were successful in creating that. And our items updated appropriately. So then let's go, we need to add another function here for def cents to dollars. And we'll take in cents in the form of an integer. Right, and then we're gonna have cents to dollars. Oh, so cents in dollars. Is equal to cents divided by 100. Right, so if we have 2,000, we'll divide by 100 to get to 20. And then return cents in dollars. Cool. So let's go ahead and git add main.py, git commit added, what do we do? Added features for adding items. Created currency conversion functions. Right? Cool. So that is that. Any kind of questions on what we got so far? So now what we have is when we run the add item function, we now appropriately detect for our sizing constraints associated with this program. So we detect that the user will appropriately add, put in a size that is, bound by our limitations here. We get a cost from the user. We added in a ability to receive both whole dollars and dollars.cents format from the user. We appropriately convert the dollars.cents format into dollars and cents individually. We convert the dollars into cents and we add up the totals to get the total amount of cents for the cost of good. And if they added whole dollars, well, we just convert that to cents and bring that forward. Else, we prompt the user with the appropriate, please provide a cost of good in a whole dollar or dollars.cents format. And we continue the loop. So let's go ahead and let's try to add an item really quick though, for one that would not be appropriate. So we have dress, cost. Let's say that we have, we try to add in, like, so the thing is we might need to add in some tries. So we might need to add in some tries to do these conversions rather than just do them right off the bat. Because what if they just said like, oh, 250, right? If they did this, we would get an error because we try to convert into dollars. So we need to keep this in mind as well. Now, will the user probably give us a word for the amount? Maybe, but most likely not. But we do need to, keep that in mind. So we might need to do a try on the conversion of dollars to ints, except for a value error. We return the back to the prompt saying, please provide a currency in dollar dot format, whatever. Um, yeah, we might need to do that. Interesting. So let's add in need to account for strings that quote 250 or 20. Right. So what we can do is simply just add in a right. We can try to do the following. Take dollars is equal to int dollars, and then except if we get a value error here, we need to print except value error will print please use integers for cost underscore of good, right? And we'll do like an example here of 20 or 20 of like 12 or 12, 5, 6 or 12.00, like that, something like that. So we'll print out that, and then we will continue, or we will continue the loop. So we'll ask for the loop again. Because they didn't give us a proper format here. So then we don't need to convert into dollars here because we already are. And then we will try to also in this statement convert cents to integer of cents here. And then we don't need to convert inside of this. And now that captures right. So now, if we run this program, we press yes, inventory, add item, item name, dress. If we say cost, if we say 2.50, catching cost. So accept value error. No, sorry, it's a type error. Right, it's not a value error, it's a type error. Okay, let's try this one more time. Dress, cost, 2.50. So we get thrown this type error. Try to convert except for a type error. We don't want to raise the type error. We want to then print this and continue. So now let's try that. Yes, inventory, add item, dress, 2.50. Value error now. So why were we getting type error before? So what happens if I try this again? Okay, there we go. Please use, we'll say, error. Please we'll make a new line like that. Please use integers number. Okay, cool. So now we get cost back if we do 2. Okay, we get a value error again. Okay, because it's not detecting this here. So we need to add in this check again here. Okay, so what we need to do is do a try. Right, if they enter a whole dollar, else right here. So this is where we're getting thrown the error into cost of good. So we can't, so we're going to try this. Except for a value error, the same value error, we're going to copy this. Right, continue. So now if the user enters in just 2 without no period, add item dress, and so if they just enter like 2 right here for cost or some sort of other string, right, we get this error. Please use integers numbers for cost of good 2 or 2.56 or 2.12.00, right? Cool. So now we can enter in 12.5, item size medium, yes, quantity 1, and then go main menu, exit, yes, and we should see that populated here. Sweet, for 12.05, everything's working. Awesome, guys. All right, Angela says, what happens if the user tries to add products that are already added? So we don't have any sort of detection for that yet. We will need to actually account for that. So that's a good point. Pardon me, that's a good point. So what we'll do is we need to say, so we need to try and do this. So what we can do is I'll copy this. Actually, I'll take this, Command X. I'm going to go to new item. I'll save it as a variable here. Right? What's going on? Can I back? Okay. Like that. We'll save that as new item. So then what we'll do is we will try to we will paste that back in. We'll try to append new item. So Interesting. So I need to think about this. We need to figure out if we want to, have the users. So if we want to try to append the item, the new item, we can do that. But um, so item name. So it doesn't really matter for items that are already in the system. uh, I think how I want to do that. Sorry if this. I'm trying to think through this, guys. But for items that are already in the system, for at least for my interpretations, is for my current business and how I would utilize this is that I don't have any duplicating items. Like I added a quantity option just in case a user does, right? But I personally do not. So when I would load items, every item has a unique item number and will have a unique item number. Now, so that's what I go by off. That's what I go off of. So we can try to add, it doesn't matter if they have duplicate names is what I'm saying. Like the items can have duplicate names because the only thing that is truly the distinguishing factor between item to item is the only way that you can really tell is that it has a new item number, right? If it has a new item number, it is a new item, right? Whereas, if you had a Calvin skirt of the same exact skirt, you could increase the quantity of that said skirt. But I don't ever usually typically, for this sourcing business we do, is I don't ever typically get two of the same skirt. I usually only find one. Now, so every item is typically unique. So that's why we categorize it via item number. Now, how can I do it so that it detects so how could I go about it, do you think? So he says you can just add it as stock quantity, but you need to look at the price issue. Right, because you sourced it at a different price. So at that point, it would technically become a new item because you sourced it at a different price. So that's why I have items being categorized as by item number rather than by like name or by price. Yeah, interesting. That's definitely a thought process we need to go down for sure. What do you think would be? What do you think? What suggestions would you have that we should implement? So regarding this, so we wouldn't want to try to append. We would just append new item and I mean, we could do a check, right? If the user enters in an item with the same name, but then again, right, the cost would have to be different. Or the cost of the good would have to be the same, like you sourced it at, which typically doesn't happen. It's a brain twister for sure. Any ideas? What do you guys think? We got 15 people in here. Add as stock and update the value to the last one added. Need to see if it meets the policies. Add as stock and update the value to the last one added. Need to see if it meets the policies. I'm not exactly sure what you mean. I kind of following. So like you would add it as stock, like quantity, and update the value to the last one added. But then it would just override all your previous data points, right? So if you, let's say that you had dress, you added dress on top of that, you would override the cost of the original dress, right? Unless we made the dress the costs a list. So we could make the costs tuples in themselves, right? So in here, the cost of the good, rather than being a single value, could be a tuple that then has every cost associated for every item. You wouldn't create a new item, it would just add the quantity of the inventory and update the item's price to the last value added. Yeah, which would mean, so the only issue, Angelo Lopez, with that one, I totally get what you're saying. I think it's a great idea, right? We wouldn't create a new item. You would just add you would just increase the quantity, right? Obviously, you would just increase the quantity. But when you're tracking the cost of item by item, let's say that the original item dress we took in was $10. We added a new dress on top of that, and let's say we sourced it at $15. Well, if we add in the $15 on top of that $10, that gives us $25 for an average of 12.50, right? Where, and we don't want to have to average out by item. We need to know for tax purposes, unfortunately, the cost of each item individually that we got it at. The average, unfortunately, wouldn't work for most business models. And you wouldn't want to use the average anyways because you want to know like your margin, not your average margin and things like that. You want to know your exact margin per item. And then like you can have the average margin based on that exact margin. You wouldn't want to have an average of an average. That would skew your data even further. So I think for these purposes is if item price could be a dict, each price could be a key, the value could be a number of items acquired at the cost. The value, each price could be a key. The value could be the item of number of items acquired at that cost. Okay, so if we had item cost of good is a dict object, right? If it cost of good if we make this a dict, right? If we make cost of good a dictionary, so cost of good would be a dictionary. You would, so cost of good would be a dict, each price would be a key. This is just getting, it's getting complicated because if we go down that route, which I think is probably what we're going to have to do, Jeremy, is if we go down the route of creating a dictionary tracking each sub items like individual cost acquired, right, quantity, we need to track then the date created for each of them as well. Like we would have to then create dictionaries for every single object, right? If we go down that road, we're gonna have to make a choice, because if we create a dictionary for just the cost of good, right? Maybe the name would stay the same. The name wouldn't need a dictionary, but the cost would, the size would. These dresses could have varying sizes if they have multiple quantities. Um, but that would probably be a new. Actually, no, the size would not, because you would want to create a new item for that size probably. Um, the item number would be unique, so that would just be one item. No, the item number. Okay, we had a problem here, people. So I think I need to have quantity not be an individual attribute, right? Bear with me, guys. So I need to have quantity be removed as an individual attribute of an item, because item is a singular form. So this is what's causing all these problems, is we're having some clashing definitions here. Is we have an individual item basis, but we have the ability to add multiple items within its attributes, and that doesn't core-align, or isn't respective to what our actual definition of what items are. So we actually need to remove. I think we need to remove the quantity, because items are it was an item is singular, right? So we need to remove the quantity aspect and make just every new item you load in one. Now, if you have multiple instances of those items, we need to create an option for the user then to bulk add those instances, those quantities, right? So if they have a quantity, right, we will go ahead and do the quantity. We'll say, okay, they have a quantity of 5, then we will just multiply the creation of these instances by 5 and update the item number plus 5 each, plus 1 each time for those items. So we would need to essentially um, we'd have to, obviously that would send us down the rabbit hole of updating the generate item number function. So we need to do that as well. So we will definitely, that'll be that we'll have to work on that tomorrow, because I think I'm probably going to wrap it up here soon for today. Anyways, this has been a really beneficial study session, working on getting back into coding on this small project. Well, not small anymore. This is turning into a pretty big project, but we did a lot of work today on completing some practice problems at the end of chapter 3, looking at big O notation and time complexity for functions and algorithms. We are going to finish up these problems over the next few days and then move on to chapter 4 and learn some new content. I take notes live on the channel, so if you're interested in seeing that and you join the stream later for the back half where we do projects, then just know for the beginning we do studying out of textbooks and various other online resources to improve, and then we put those into practice through projects. So we're going to write algorithms from that book to sort these items and to manage them and filter them, and so we're going to get direct hands-on practice with all of these features that we're learning, and all these new concepts. So follow along to the channel if that is something that you're interested in, for sure. I love to interact and talk with you guys. So what we're going to do tomorrow then is we're going to actually remove the quantity attribute from the item, because this is on a singular level, and by adding in a quantity here, it just creates the nuance for additional work that we don't want to do, just for this specific circumstance. Now, if we want to create, we might add features maybe to expand on this, but I think we just need to keep this kind of basic for now and then build on it later. So we'll remove the quantity aspect, and then we will allow the user to create a multiple, right, outside of the individual basis. But so you have individual item instances here that are created, but then we can create a multiple on the outside, not on the inside, a multiple on the outside that will just create 5 of these, 10 of these, 20 of these if they have them. And so then you can edit each one of those individually and everything will be given their own item number in order from items. So that's just how I currently do it. Is every individual item has its own item number, but I know that some companies, obviously, that gets further down for like manufacturing, they have item numbers and they have lot numbers to break down those item numbers even further, and then they have like even further categorizing from there. But I don't think that that's super necessary for a simple kind of clothing business manager for right now. But if we get into some more advanced needs for sorting and managing systems and items, then we'll have to implement some sort of object-oriented approach for that. But we are one view away from 500 today on the stream, so I appreciate you guys joining me. We streamed for over 3 hours today, which is a tremendous amount of time to stream and study. So I appreciate you guys joining me. And for those that just joined, I'm sorry I'm about to sign off here, but thank you so much for joining. I do live learning. I'm a self-taught beginner programmer. I teach myself out of textbooks and through various online resources. So beginning half, we read Python, data structures and algorithms Python. We'll read fluent Python. We will read eventually machine learning in Python and all. And then also feel free to join the Discord link below, where I just conglomerate all my study resources into one location for you guys. But Angela says, I don't think you need to worry about that for now, but in the future it would be interesting to have a rule for repeating items. Yes, so we'll deal with that tomorrow for sure. So I appreciate you guys joining me today. I'm not going to push this yet because these edits really aren't really needed. So I'll just save it, and we'll push and commit this when we have some actual code to commit. But thanks you so much, guys, for joining me today. I'll be back tomorrow as usual, and I'll see you then. See ya. Thank you.